With Netflix, Hulu, and other streaming services, how do community theaters continue to draw younger generations to volunteer, perform, or simply as an audience member? For a matter of fact, how do Oklahoma community theaters survive in a state that doesn't emphasize the arts? Let's look specifically at Oklahoma community theaters and two that are close to home. Town and Gown Theater, located on the outskirts of Stillwater, Oklahoma, has thrived for 66 seasons of performances. One of their most recent productions, To Kill a Mockingbird, is an example of the theater's success. But why is it so successful?
Not only right now, but in general throughout our history, we have been very lucky to have people who built the theater company from the ground up with a lot of support from the community, a lot of great patrons who've stayed patrons and season ticket holders for years and decades in some cases. So there's a lot of support in that regard. We're in great shape financially. A lot of theaters, community theaters, operate on either in the red essentially, or they operate on grant funds almost entirely or significantly, whereas we've been lucky enough that our ticket sales and season ticket sales and donations, which we get a lot of donations, a lot of money comes in donations every year, have kept us in the black with a comfortable amount of money in the bank to repair things that happen on the building or make purchases that we need to make for the theater in a general sense, or technology, or any given play or what have you. So we're in great shape in that regard, and we've been lucky also in that we have new volunteers. In any community type organization, and especially community theater, you tend to get sort of a small enclave of people who do it all, and they do it all the time for every show for years and years and years, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But it's also a good thing to try to bring in young people and new people in general from the community and get them involved. And we've really been able to do that well over the past few years. We've brought in a lot of young people, college-age people, for example, have come out and done several of our productions the past several years. Brought in a lot. This one's going to bring in some new people, I think, from the community who maybe haven't been involved before. So we're in great shape, and we're excited about our future. The thing that we've been really lucky about, again, with Town and Gown, is that we're in a community that has a university, so we have a lot of young talent and a lot of fresh and vibrant sort of energy in our town, if you will, and an interest in theater arts, perhaps more so than just any other town of similar size.
But are all community theaters as fortunate as Town and Gown?
There are some other community theaters in the state that are also in really great shape. Ponca City is an excellent community theater. They do great productions, they have great support from the community as well, and their patron base, very similar to what we have here. There's a well-known theater called the Jewel Box in Oklahoma City, which does great productions. Of course, being in a larger city, you have a lot bigger talent pool to draw from. But you also have a lot bigger list of competitive interests, things that people can spend their money on and their time on. So I think that works both to advantage and disadvantage. I think the thing that's, there are some very small towns whose community theaters have unfortunately dried up.
What caused these theaters to dry up? What can keep others from following in their footsteps?
If they are not willing to think outside their theater box, I think that is definitely going to happen. What comes to mind is a few years back when Starbucks made a huge push to open and build new places and open, and they overextended themselves. And the last ones opened were the first ones closed. If you're not willing to look at a different model, if you're not willing to look outside the box, I think many theaters are going to suffer that way. And those that have boards and members that are willing to embrace anything to do with theater and the arts are the ones that are going to survive.
The Ponca Playhouse is a small community theater, like Town and Gown. While the theaters share similarities, the Playhouse depends on financial help from the state.
Absolutely. We have the Arts Council, we have Oklahoma Arts, we have a lot of OCTA. We get a lot of support from our state level. We request funding from those, and we couldn't do some of the shows that we do without that funding.
What would happen if those funds stopped coming?
My fear is that we're going to lose a bunch of theaters with the budgeting at the National Capitol with the National Endowment for the Arts, which if that goes through, there will not be a National Endowment for the Arts. The money from that federal money does come down to the state and is dispersed by the Oklahoma Arts Council. So if there's no money to disperse, the Oklahoma Arts Council will probably not be around much longer. So I really am afraid for the arts in general, and specifically, for community theaters, because many of them, I would say 99% of them, are surviving on grants from the Oklahoma Arts Council, which is National Endowment for the Arts, which makes me nervous for them. Town and Gown is an exception. Town and Gown does not ask for money from the Oklahoma Arts Council. They've been able, through the wonderful support of their patrons, to, keep going for 65 years, 66 years, yes.
With the fear of the funding disappearing, the future of theaters is uncertain.
The future for arts in general. Well, right now it's kind of scary, with certain funding at stake. A lot of artists and a lot of fans of the arts are wondering that very same thing. How is it going to affect the arts? We'd prefer not to find out. We'd prefer to have the funding that we need, that we've always had, because it's tough enough as it is.
Money is just one worry of community theaters going forward.
I think they'll continue to be challenged by the fact that people spend less and less time entertaining themselves outside of their homes, because a lot of people find entertainment on devices that they hold, and they spend a lot of time doing that. And they spend more and more money on those devices, on services and so forth. And there's so many options now with streaming content. You can sit at home and watch about any movie you can think of that's ever been made. So those challenges are certainly there for community theater. And I think they'll continue to be there, frankly. And I think it will be the case for community theater that if you're in a really big city where there's a vibrant arts community in particular, that'll help float you. If you're in a city that's just that perfect Goldilocks size, where everything works out well, like I think it does in Stillwater, to support a community theater, that will work well for you. But I think the number of and types of locations where community theater will work will probably shrink. And so in that regard, you may find community theater in fewer places. But I think if you have good support, that there's sort of will continue to be interested in the arts in general and theater arts, regardless of what else is going on.
Whether it's from funding or technology, community theaters in Oklahoma are endangered. The support of the community for these theaters is vital. Theaters need to know how to use the community to their full advantage.
Depends how well they beg. I think begging correctly and making sure that the community, your support community, understands exactly where you are all the time. That communication level is going to be one of the most important things moving forward.
Or the state of Oklahoma could face a future without community theaters around, like Town and Gown Theater and the Ponca Playhouse.